Tayana Baptiste thought the most dangerous thing about Seoul was the language barrier. She was wrong. The most dangerous thing was the way Min Jae Park looked at her the morning after, like a man who'd found something sacred in the darkness and would slaughter anyone who tried to take it away. "You're mine forever now," he'd growled, his tattooed fingers still tangled in her locks. She'd laughed it off as pillow talk. Big mistake. Because 3 weeks later, when she saw his face on the news, labeled as one of South Korea's most ruthless mafia bosses, and the pregnancy test in her trembling hands showed 2 pink lines, Tayana realized she hadn't just given her virginity to a stranger. She'd given it to a man who didn't know how to let go, and he didn't even know about the baby yet. But that morning in Seoul, 3 weeks earlier, Tayana had been blissfully ignorant as golden sunlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite she didn't remember entering. Her body ached in unfamiliar places, a delicious soreness that made her remember his mouth, his hands, the way he'd worshipped every inch of her, like a man possessed. The silk sheets against her brown skin felt like wealth she'd only seen in movies. "You're awake." His voice came from across the room, rough with something that sounded like reverence and hunger wrapped together. Tayana sat up quickly, clutching the sheet to her chest. Min Jae stood by the window, shirtless, and her breath caught. Intricate black tattoos covered his left shoulder and ribcage, a tiger mid-strike, cherry blossoms bleeding into Korean characters she couldn't read. The morning light made his skin glow golden, highlighting muscles that belonged on men who hurt people for a living, not on the businessman who'd bought her whiskey and made her forget every rule she'd ever made about strangers. She started, but her voice came out raw, hoarse from crying his name. "I should go." "Should you?" He moved closer, predatory grace in every step that made her thighs clench involuntarily. His eyes, God, those obsidian eyes, pinned her in place like prey. "Or are you running because I made you feel things nice girls from Brooklyn don't admit to wanting?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. Heat flooded her face, her chest lower. "You don't know me. I know you taste like coconut oil and cocoa butter everywhere." He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that his body heat wrapped around her like a claim. "I know that sound you made when I kissed you in places no one else had. I know you trembled when I touched you, like every nerve was on fire." His fingers traced the sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder, and she gasped. "I know you held on to me so tight you left marks when you—" "Stop," she whispered, but her body arched toward him like a traitor. "Stop what? Reminding you how you begged me not to stop last night?" His hand slid up her thigh beneath the sheets, stopping just short of where she ached. "How you cried when I discovered no one had ever touched you. How you looked at me like I was your salvation and your damnation at the same time." A whimper escaped her throat. She was already responding to him again, already wanting him in ways that made shame and desire war in her chest. Min Jae's eyes went molten. "Your body doesn't lie to me, Tayana. It can't. Not after last night." His thumb stroked dangerously high on her inner thigh. "I felt everything, every tremble, every time you pulled me closer." "What are you?" The question came out desperate, broken, because men like you don't exist in your safe little world. His laugh was dark chocolate and razors. "What if I told you I'm exactly the kind of man who ruins good girls, the kind your grandmother would have burned sage to keep away?" Then I'd say I should have listened to her. But her hands reached for him anyway, fingers tracing the tiger tattoo that seemed to move with his breath. Min Jae captured both her wrists in one hand, his grip firm enough to remind her how easily he could overpower her. How easily he'd held her last night, while he— "You feel this?" He pressed her palm against his bare chest where his heart thundered like war drums. "This doesn't happen for me, ever." His accent wrapped around the words like a threat and a promise. I don't get attached, He stopped himself, jaw clenching so hard she saw the muscle jump. "But you've gotten under my skin like a fever." What Tayana didn't know, what she couldn't see from her position wrapped in his sheets and his scent, was that across the Han River, Min-jae's father was discovering his son's absence from a crucial meeting, that the engagement contract Min-jae had violated by touching her carried a blood price paid in bodies, that the men in black suits who'd watched them all evening weren't just security, they were collectors, and Min-jae had just stolen something that didn't belong to him. Her innocence was collateral damage in a war she didn't know existed. She should have run. Every self-preservation instinct her mother had drilled into her screamed to grab her clothes and flee back to her safe nursing conference. Instead, she leaned into his touch like a woman addicted to her own destruction. "One more day," he murmured against her temple, his lips trailing fire down to her neck where he'd left a mark. Deliberate, possessive. She'd have to cover it with makeup. The thought made him smile against her skin. "Give me one more day before reality destroys this." "Why?" Her voice broke. "Why me?" His eyes went feral, possessive in a way that should have terrified her. "Because you looked at me like I was just a man, not a monster." He kissed the pulse hammering in her throat, then bit down gently. Another mark. Not yet, anyway. That answer should have sent her running. Instead, it made her core clench with want. "One day," she breathed, "but I need to know your name, your real, full name, not just—" Something flickered in his expression. Hesitation, maybe regret. Min-jae Park. He said it like a confession, like a curse. "Remember it, Tayana. You're going to need it." The weight in those words made her chest tight, but before she could question it, he was kissing her again, making her forget every question except how his hands knew exactly where to touch, to make her forget her own name. That day in Seoul became a fever dream painted in desire and incense smoke. He took her to a private hanok hidden in Bukchon, where cherry blossoms fell like snow and the air smelled of sandalwood and secrets. The traditional house belonged to his grandmother, he said, though the way the elderly woman bowed to him suggested something more complicated. She served them tea with hands that trembled, never meeting his eyes. Min-jae spoke to her in rapid Korean, soft, gentle, but Tayana caught the edge of command beneath the courtesy. "What did you tell her?" Tayana asked when they were alone in the courtyard. "That you're important to me." His hand slid possessively around her waist. "That anyone who disrespects you disrespects me." That's a lot of weight for a one-night stand. His grip tightened almost painfully. "Is that what you think this is?" The danger in his voice made her pulse spike. "What else would it be?" "Mine." The word came out guttural, possessive. "You're mine now. I don't share. I don't let go. And I sure as hell don't forget." Before she could process that declaration, he pulled her into the shadows of the hanok and kissed her like he was trying to brand his soul onto hers. His hands roamed possessively, her hips, her curves, pulling her against him until she felt exactly how much he wanted her again. "Min-jae," she gasped against his mouth. "Someone could let them see." His hand slid lower, gripping her in ways that made her knees weak. "Let them know you're mine." He took her to Gwangjang Market, where the air smelled of sesame oil, fermented kimchi, and sizzling meat. Fed her tteokbokki and hotteok while his security watched from the shadows. Men in dark suits who made vendors nervous and civilians give them space. She pretended not to notice the way people avoided looking directly at Min-jae, the way shopkeepers bowed too low, the way a man bumped into her and Min-jae had him by the throat in half a second. "Apologize," Min-jae said quietly in Korean, his voice deadly calm. "Min-jae, it's fine," Tayana started. "It's not fine." His eyes never left the man who'd gone pale with terror. "No one touches what's mine." The man stammered an apology, and Min-jae released him with a shove that sent him sprawling. When he turned back to Tayana, his expression softened immediately, but she'd seen it, that flash of violence lurking beneath the surface. "You're scared," he observed, his thumb stroking her cheek. "Should I be?" "Of me. Never." His hand slid to her nape, possessive. "I'd burn the world before I'd hurt you. But yes, be scared of what I'd do to anyone else who tries." The conviction in his voice made something primal in her respond with heat instead of fear. What was wrong with her? But if Tayana had been paying attention, if she hadn't been drunk on his touch and his words, she would have noticed the way his security were speaking urgently into phones, the way they kept glancing at Min Jae with something that looked like dread, the way the net was already tightening around them both. They ended the day at the Hanok and he taught her curse words in Korean while his hands stayed possessive on her waist, her hip, the small of her back, always touching, always claiming. "Say it," he demanded, grinning like sin itself. "Shibal," she attempted, and his laugh rumbled through his chest into hers. "Terrible. Say it right or I'll have to punish you." Her breath hitched at the promise in his voice. How? His eyes went dark, hungry. He leaned in close, his lips brushing her ear. "I'll make you beg me to stop teasing you and give you what you really want." Heat flooded through her so fast she gasped. The images that conjured, his hands, his mouth, his body against hers. "Min Jae-si." A man's voice cut through the moment like a blade. Min Jae went rigid, his entire body transforming into something lethal. When he turned, the man who'd laughed with her seconds ago had vanished. In his place stood someone cold enough to kill without hesitation. The man bowed low, speaking rapid Korean that made Min Jae's expression shudder completely. She caught one word repeated. "Abeoji." Father. "I have to go." Min Jae was already moving, his phone erupting with calls he silenced with vicious swipes. "What? Min Jae, what's happening?" He stopped at the entrance, every muscle in his back coiled tight like a predator preparing to strike. When he turned, his eyes held something that looked like grief and rage and desperate hunger all at once. "If you're smart," he said quietly, voice raw, "you'll forget me. Forget this. Go home to Brooklyn. Live your safe little life. Find some nice man who won't—" His hands clenched into fists hard enough his knuckles went white. "Who won't drag you into hell with him." "Won't what?" "Min Jae, talk to me." "Ruin you." He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, cupping her face like she was something precious and breakable. "But you should know. Forgetting you is going to destroy me, and I don't forget what's mine. Ever." He kissed her one last time, desperate, possessive, tasting like goodbye and promises he couldn't keep. Then he was gone, leaving nothing but cherry blossoms scattered on the floor and the ghost of his touch burning on her skin. Tayana stood alone in a borrowed hanbok, feeling the first flutter of real fear that maybe, just maybe, she'd given her innocence to the kind of man who'd either worship her or destroy her. She wouldn't know which until 3 weeks later, staring at 2 pink lines and his face on the news with the word "wanted" underneath, realizing he'd be coming back for her, and men like Min Jae Park didn't come back for conversation. Think this is intense? We're just getting started. Ensure you're subscribed to this channel because when Min Jae finds out about the pregnancy, his possessive side is about to reach a whole new level. And Tayana, she's about to learn that men like him don't let go, ever. 3 weeks of silence felt like dying slowly. Tayana told herself she was fine, that whatever happened in Seoul stayed in Seoul, that Min Jae Park was just a beautiful mistake she'd learn from and move on. She threw herself into double shifts at Brooklyn Methodist, let her best friend Shanice drag her to Sunday brunch, and absolutely did not check her phone every 5 minutes, hoping for a message that never came. She was handling it. Totally handling it. Except she wasn't, because every night she dreamed of tattooed hands and possessive growls. Woke up aching and empty, her body remembering exactly how he'd filled her, stretched her, made her scream his name until her voice went hoarse. She'd touch herself in the dark, chasing the ghost of his mouth between her thighs, but her own fingers were nothing compared to... She had to stop. This was pathetic, until the nausea hit. "Girl, you look green," Shanice said, eyeing her untouched mimosa at their usual spot in Fort Greene. The Sunday brunch crowd buzzed around them, but Tayana could barely focus past the rolling in her stomach. "You coming down with something?" "Just tired." Tayana pushed her plate away, the smell of bacon making bile rise in her throat. "You know how it is." Shanice's eyes narrowed with that look, the one that said she knew Tayana was lying but would circle back to it. So you gonna tell me about Soul, or we still pretending nothing happened? Nothing happened. Tayana Baptiste. Shanice leaned forward, her box braids swinging. I've known you since nursing school. You came back from that conference different, jumpy, checking your phone like you're waiting for the second coming, and now you can't even look at bacon without turning green? Her eyes went wide. Oh my God, you met someone. Tayana's chest tightened. I didn't. You absolutely did. Was he fine? Please tell me he was fine because you've been in a drought longer than the Sahara and... She stopped, really looking at Tayana's face. Wait, that good, huh? Good enough to have you looking like a ghost 3 weeks later? Worse. Because Tayana couldn't stop thinking about the way Min Jae had pinned her wrists above her head, the delicious weight of him between her thighs, the dark promise in his voice when he'd said, mine. Because her body still woke up wet and wanting at 3 a.m., because she'd given a stranger everything and he'd vanished, like he'd never existed. He's gone, she said, finally, her voice cracking. That's all that matters. Shanice reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Baby, I'm sorry. Men are trash, even the fine ones. Especially the fine ones. Especially the ones with tiger tattoos and obsidian eyes who made you forget your own name. Tayana made it through brunch, made it home, made it 2 more days before the nausea got so bad she couldn't ignore it anymore. And when she stood in the Duane Reade on Flatbush Avenue staring at pregnancy tests, her hands shook so badly the boxes rattled. This couldn't be happening. They'd used protection. She remembered that much through the haze of desire and desperation. But protection failed. Statistics didn't care about broken hearts or ruined lives. In the store bathroom, Tayana peed on the stick with trembling hands and watched her entire life change in 3 minutes. 2 pink lines. Her vision blurred. She gripped the sink, her reflection showing a woman she barely recognized. Eyes too wide, breathing too fast, terror written across every feature. A baby. She was going to have a baby. Min Jae's baby. The man whose last name she barely knew, who disappeared without a trace, who touched her like she was sacred and then vanished like she meant nothing. Her phone buzzed. News alert. Tayana's thumb moved on autopilot and her world tilted violently sideways. The photo showed Min Jae in a perfectly tailored suit, flanked by men in black suits with guns visible in shoulder holsters. His expression was cold, lethal, nothing like the man who'd laughed with her over Taeyokboki. The headline screamed, Park Min Jae, Baeko faction heir, sought in gang violence investigation. The phone slipped from her fingers. She read in horror, words like organized crime syndicate and mafia boss and armed and dangerous, blurring together with details about the Park family's iron grip on Seoul's underground, protection rackets, money laundering, violence that made her nursing training seem naive and useless. This was the man who'd whispered sweet things in Korean against her skin, who'd fed her street food and held her like she was precious, who discovered her innocence and treated it like a gift instead of a burden. This was the father of her child. The pregnancy test clattered into the sink. Tayana's legs gave out, and she slid down the bathroom wall, her chest so tight she couldn't breathe. What had she done? What had she been thinking? She'd let a stranger, a criminal, inside her body, and now she was carrying his baby. A baby who would have a mafia boss for a father. A baby who might inherit those same cold eyes and capacity for violence. A baby she already loved so fiercely it terrified her. The bathroom door rattled. Miss, you okay in there? Tayana forced herself up, shoved the test into her purse with shaking hands, and walked out on legs that barely held her. She made it 2 blocks before she had to stop, leaning against a brick wall, while panic clawed at her throat. She was alone. Completely alone. Pregnant with a mobster's baby. She couldn't tell anyone. Couldn't go to the police. What would she even say? I slept with a Korean mafia heir and now I'm knocked up? They'd laugh her out of the precinct or worse, put her in some kind of witness protection that would destroy her entire life. Couldn't tell her family. Her mother would have a stroke, and her grandmother would probably try to perform a spiritual cleansing with bush medicine and prayers. What Tayana didn't know, couldn't have known as she stood on that Brooklyn Street corner trying not to fall apart, was that 3 blocks away, A black Mercedes with diplomatic plates had been following her since she left brunch, that Min Jae's people had found her 2 days ago, that they'd been watching, waiting, reporting back to a man who was currently on a plane over the Pacific, losing his goddamn mind because his father's enemies knew about her now. That Min Jae had spent 3 weeks in hell, taking beatings and making deals and burning bridges, all to buy himself the freedom to come back for her, and that he was approximately 18 hours away from kicking down her door. Tayana went home to her tiny studio in Flatbush, locked the door, and tried to make a plan. She'd keep the baby. That decision came easier than breathing, probably because her grandmother's Catholic guilt ran deep. She'd figure out her finances, pick up extra shifts, maybe move to a cheaper neighborhood. She'd do this alone because she had no other choice. She absolutely would not think about Min Jae Park, except she did, constantly, obsessively. She thought about him while she showered, her hands sliding over her still flat stomach where his baby grew. Wondered if he ever thought about her. If that night had meant anything to him, or if she'd been just another conquest, if he'd feel anything knowing she carried his child, or if he'd... No, she couldn't go there. Couldn't let herself hope for something that would destroy her. That night, Tayana lay in bed, unable to sleep, her mind racing. She pulled up the news article again, studying Min Jae's face like she could find answers in the harsh lines and cold expression. He looked dangerous, untouchable. Nothing like the man who'd begged for one more day with her. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. The purple flowers on your nightstand are beautiful. Hydrangeas, right? They mean devotion in Korea. Tayana's blood went cold. She shot up in bed, eyes flying to her nightstand, where a vase of purple hydrangeas sat. Flowers that definitely weren't there when she'd left for brunch. Her door was locked. Her window was closed. How the hell... Another text. Don't be afraid. I won't let anyone hurt you. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. Someone had been in her apartment. Was maybe still watching. She grabbed her pepper spray from the drawer, her heart hammering so hard her chest hurt. Another text. He's looking for you. Has been since the moment he left Seoul. You should know. He's killed 3 men in the last 2 weeks for getting too close to information about you. Tayana's breath came in short gasps. This was insane. This was... Her phone rang. Different number. Korean country code. She should not answer. Should call 911. Should do literally anything except put that phone to her ear. She answered. Tayana. His voice, rough, desperate, achingly familiar, came through the line like a physical touch that made her core clench despite everything. Thank God. I've been losing my mind trying to find you. The sound of him saying her name after 3 weeks of silence broke something inside her. How did you get this number? I have resources. A pause filled with tension so thick she could barely breathe. Are you alone? That's none of your... Are you alone? Not a question. A command that made her thighs clench with involuntary heat. Her throat tightened. She should hang up. Should block this number and pretend this conversation never happened. Yes. Good. His voice dropped to something dark and possessive that made her remember exactly how he sounded when he was inside her. Lock your doors. All of them. Windows, too. Don't open them for anyone except me. Excuse me? Min Jae, what the hell is... I'm in New York. The words hit her like a physical blow. Landed 2 hours ago. I'm coming for you, Tayana. And when I get there, we're going to talk about why you didn't tell me you're pregnant with my child. The world stopped. Her vision blurred at the edges. How did you... Did you really think I wouldn't know? His voice went rough with emotion she couldn't name. That I wouldn't feel it? You're carrying my baby, and you weren't going to tell me? Tears burned her eyes. You're a criminal. A gangster. I saw the news. I know what you are. Silence. Then, so quietly it terrified her. You have no idea what I am, but you're about to find out. A pause filled with promise and threat. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Be ready. Ready for what? To become mine. Officially. Permanently. His voice turned to gravel. "Because that baby you're carrying just made you the most dangerous woman in my world, Tayana, and I don't let dangerous things out of my sight." The line went dead. Tayana stood frozen in her apartment, pregnancy test in her purse, hydrangeas on her nightstand, and the terrible realization that the most dangerous man she'd ever met was about to walk back into her life. And God help her, her traitorous body was already aching for his touch. Tayana had exactly 28 minutes to lose her mind. She paced her tiny studio like a caged animal, her phone clutched in, one hand pepper spray in the other, like that would do anything against a man who'd killed 3 people looking for her. Her heart hammered so hard she felt it in her throat, her wrists between her thighs, where her body remembered exactly what Min Jae could do to her. She should run. Pack a bag and disappear into the subway system, lose herself in the millions of people in New York. But even as the thought formed, she knew it was useless. If he'd found her number, her address, knew about the pregnancy she'd discovered 2 hours ago, running was pointless. And God help her, she didn't want to run. Her body had been aching for him for 3 weeks, craving his touch like an addiction she couldn't shake. Now he was coming back, and despite everything, the news articles, the violence, the danger, her body responded with heat and anticipation. What was wrong with her? 23 minutes. Tayana caught sight of herself in the mirror. Her locks were a mess. She wore old leggings and an oversized Howard University sweatshirt. No makeup, no bra. Her body felt different already. Breasts tender, more sensitive. Would he notice? Would his hands stop? She needed to stop thinking about his hands. She should change. Put on something that didn't scream, "I've been crying in my apartment." Armor herself with clothes and attitude and whatever dignity she had left. Instead, she stood frozen, her reflection showing a woman whose body was already betraying her. Flushed cheeks, dilated pupils, lips parted like she was already anticipating his mouth on hers. 18 minutes. Except it wasn't 18 minutes because a knock on her door made her jump so hard she nearly dropped the pepper spray. Tayana. His voice came through the door, and every nerve ending in her body lit up like fireworks. "Open the door." "You said 30 minutes." Her voice came out breathless, needy. "It's only been—" "I lied." A pause filled with tension so thick she could taste it. "I've been sitting in my car outside your building going insane, watching your window, knowing you're up there alone, scared, carrying my baby." His voice dropped to gravel. "Open the door before I do something we'll both regret." Her feet moved before her brain caught up, drawn to him like gravity. Her hand reached for the deadbolt, then stopped. "How do I know you're alone?" "You don't." His voice took on that dangerous edge that made her core clench. "But if I wanted to take you, Tayana, a locked door wouldn't stop me. I'd kick it down, throw you over my shoulder, and have you in my car before you could scream." A pause. "And we both know you wouldn't scream." "Would you?" Her thighs pressed together involuntarily. No, she wouldn't. Her traitorous body would probably wrap around him and... She unlocked the door with trembling hands. Min Jae filled her doorway like a dark fantasy made flesh. 3 weeks had carved him into something leaner, more dangerous. His black suit was rumpled, his white shirt open at the collar showing the edge of his tiger tattoo. Dark circles shadowed those obsidian eyes that raked over her like a physical touch, a healing cut on his sharp cheekbone, bruised knuckles that made her wonder who he'd hit, who he'd killed. He looked like 3 weeks in hell, and she'd never wanted anyone more in her life. His eyes dragged over her, slow, possessive, lingering on her chest where the thin fabric left little to imagination. His jaw clenched. "You're not wearing—" It wasn't a question. Heat flooded her face, lower. "I wasn't expecting—" "I can see how your body remembers me, how it wants me even when your brain is telling you to run." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a finality that made her pulse spike. "You're already responding to me, aren't you?" She should deny it, should slap him for his arrogance. Instead, she stood frozen as he moved closer, predatory and controlled. "You're really pregnant." His hand lifted, hovering over her stomach without touching. With my baby. How did you know? Her voice cracked. I just found out. My people have been watching you. His eyes lifted to hers, dark with possession. Followed you to the pharmacy. Saw you buy the test. Saw you come out of that bathroom looking destroyed. His jaw clenched hard enough she heard his teeth grind. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Knowing you were alone, scared, thinking you had to handle this by yourself? You left me. The accusation came out broken. You disappeared like I meant nothing. I left to protect you. He closed the distance between them until his heat wrapped around her. My father found out about you, about what I did, breaking my engagement, touching you when you belonged to no one, making you mine. His hand finally touched her, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. He threatened to kill you, Tayana, slowly, painfully. Make me watch. Her breath caught. Your father is dead now. He said it without emotion. I made sure of that 3 days ago. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Tayana's chest tightened. You killed your own father? I killed the man who threatened you. His thumb stroked her bottom lip and she nearly whimpered. I'd kill anyone who threatens what's mine, family or not. What Tayana didn't know, what Min-jae wasn't ready to tell her yet, was that his father's death had fractured the Baeko faction into 3 warring factions. That half of Seoul's underground wanted Min-jae dead for patricide, that the other half wanted him as their leader, that marrying an outsider, a Black American woman, would either consolidate his power or destroy him completely, and that across the street, in a black van with tinted windows, his enemies were watching this exact conversation, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I need time. Tayana tried to step back, but her body wouldn't cooperate. To think, to process. This is insane. You think I don't know that? His other hand slid to her waist, pulling her close enough that she felt him hard against her stomach. You think I planned this? To fall for a woman in one night? To lose my mind over someone I can't have? To kill my own father to protect her? You don't love me. But her voice shook. You don't even know me. I know you taste like coconut and honey. His lips brushed her temple, her cheekbone. I know the sounds you make when you're close. I know you held on to me so tight you left marks because you didn't want to let go. His hand splayed over her stomach possessively. I know you're terrified right now, but your body is aching for me to touch you, to remind you how good we are together. Her breath came in short gasps. His hand was sliding lower, fingers teasing the waistband of her leggings. She should stop him, should tell me I'm wrong. His mouth moved to her neck, finding that spot that made her knees weak. Tell me you don't want this, that you haven't been thinking about me every night, that you don't remember exactly how I made you feel. She couldn't, because it was all true. Every word. I can't marry you. But her hands were fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing away. I can't. You can. You will. His teeth grazed her neck and she moaned. Because the alternative is watching everyone you love die while my enemies use you against me. Is raising our baby alone while looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Is never feeling this again. His hand slipped beneath her waistband, and Tayana's world narrowed to the feel of his fingers against bare skin, moving lower with deliberate slowness. Min-jae. Her protest died as his fingers found her heat, and she was already for him. That's what I thought. His groan rumbled against her throat. Even scared, even angry, your body knows who it belongs to. This isn't... She gasped as his fingers explored, teasing with devastating precision. You can't just... I can. I will. His touch grew more insistent, and she nearly collapsed against him. I'll use every weapon I have, Tayana. Your body. Your need for me. His other hand gripped her hip, holding her steady. I'll make you so addicted to how I make you feel that saying no becomes impossible. She was already trembling, already losing herself in sensation. 3 weeks of wanting him, needing him, and now he was touching her like he owned her body, and maybe, God help her, he did. Say it. His voice went dark, commanding. Say you're mine. Her body was responding, heat building in her core. Min-jae, I can't think when you... Good, don't think. Just feel. His touch intensified and she saw stars. Feel how perfectly we fit, how your body responds to mine, how it's already mine even if you won't admit it yet. She was going to fall apart, right here in her doorway with a man who'd killed his own father, who was demanding she marry him, who made her body sing in ways that terrified and thrilled her. His phone buzzed. Once, twice. Urgent. Min-jae's entire body went rigid. His hand stilled, and she nearly sobbed at the loss. No. His voice went cold, lethal. Not now. He withdrew his hand, and she whimpered at the emptiness. He looked at his phone, and his expression transformed into something that made her blood run cold. Get dressed. Now. He was already moving, checking the window, his hand going to something at his back. A gun. He had a gun. We have maybe 2 minutes. What, Min-jae? They found us. He grabbed her coat, her purse, shoving them at her. The people who want to use you against me, they're here. Here? How do you... A red laser dot appeared on her wall, tracking slowly toward where she stood. Min-jae moved like violence incarnate, tackling her to the floor as her window exploded inward. Glass rained down like deadly rain. She screamed, her hands instinctively covering her stomach, protecting the baby. Stay down! Min-jae's body covered hers, heavy and protective, as her door crashed open with a deafening boom. 3 men in black tactical gear poured through, guns raised, moving with military precision. Min-jae rolled, putting himself between her and the threat, his own weapon appearing in his hand like magic. Gunfire erupted, deafening, terrifying. Taeyana pressed herself against the floor, hands protecting her stomach, eyes squeezed shut. She heard Min-jae shouting in Korean, heard bodies hitting the floor, heard violence she'd only ever seen in movies. Then silence, heavy, ringing silence broken only by her ragged breathing. Taeyana. Min-jae's hands were on her face, checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? The baby... I'm okay. Her voice shook. We're okay. His eyes closed briefly, relief washing over his features. Then he was pulling her up, his arm around her waist, moving her toward the door with urgent efficiency. We need to go, now. There'll be more. And Taeyana, stepping over bodies in her own apartment with Min-jae's arm iron tight around her waist, and her hands protecting the baby they'd made in Seoul, realized that saying no was never really an option. Because Min-jae Park's world had just crashed into hers with bullets and broken glass and violence she'd only seen in movies. And the most terrifying part, even now with death surrounding them, part of her still ached for his touch. There was no going back. Min-jae's car was a tank disguised as a Mercedes, bulletproof glass, reinforced doors, and a driver who navigated Brooklyn streets like he was escaping a war zone, which Taeyana supposed he was. She sat in the back seat, Min-jae's jacket wrapped around her trembling shoulders, her hands still protectively covering her stomach. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and nauseous and hyper-aware of the man beside her. Even now, even after watching him kill 3 men with terrifying efficiency, her body responded to his proximity. The heat of his thigh pressed against hers, the scent of sandalwood and gunpowder, the way his hand kept reaching for her like he needed to confirm she was real. Where are we going? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Somewhere safe. Min-jae's hand found hers in the darkness, threading their fingers together. His thumb stroked her knuckles with surprising gentleness for a man who'd just committed murder. I have a property in Manhattan. Penthouse. Security team. No one gets in without going through an army first. You can't just... She tried to pull her hand away, but he held firm. You can't just kidnap me because some people shot up my apartment. I didn't kidnap you. I saved you. His eyes flashed dangerously in the passing streetlights, and God help her, that darkness made her core clench. There's a difference. Is there? She turned to face him fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Because from where I'm sitting, You just dragged me out of my home, away from my life, without asking what I wanted. What you want? His voice went low, deadly, sending shivers down her spine. You want to go back to that apartment and wait for the next team? Because they'll come, Tayana. They'll keep coming until they have you, our baby, or you're both dead. The words hit like a slap. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, and his followed immediately, covering hers with possessive heat. Because of you, she whispered. Yes. He didn't deny it, didn't soften it. Because you're carrying my child? Because you let me inside you, gave me something precious, and now you're mine, whether you accept it or not. His hand pressed more firmly against her stomach. In my world, the things I claim become weapons my enemies use against me. I won't let that happen to you. I didn't ask for this. Tears burned her eyes, but anger was there too, hot and justified. I didn't ask to be pregnant, didn't ask to be a target, didn't ask for you to come back and turn my life into a war zone. No, you asked for one night. He leaned closer, his heat wrapping around her despite her anger, his breath against her neck making her tremble. One night of forgetting the world existed, of letting a stranger touch you in ways no one else ever had, of screaming my name until your voice gave out. His lips brushed her ear. You got that night, Tayana. Now you get the consequences. Heat flooded her body, inappropriate, unwanted, undeniable. You're a killer. She forced the words out, even as her body betrayed her, leaning into him. I watched you. Kill the men who came to hurt you? To take you? To use our baby as leverage? His free hand slid to her thigh, gripping possessively through the leggings. Yes, I killed them. I'd kill 1,000 more if that's what it takes. His mouth moved to her neck, finding that spot that made her gasp. I know what I am. I've never pretended to be anything else, but I'm your monster now. And monsters are very, very good at protecting what belongs to them. I don't belong to you. But her voice shook, her body melting against his despite everything. Your body thinks otherwise. His hand slid higher on her thigh, and she bit back a whimper. It's been aching for me, hasn't it? Every night since Soul, wanting me even when you hate yourself for it. She couldn't deny it. Couldn't lie when he could probably feel her trembling, feel the heat radiating from her core. What Tayana didn't know, what Min-jae's tense shoulders and constantly checking phone suggested, was that the attack on her apartment was just the opening move, that his cousin, Ji-hoon, had orchestrated it to prove Min-jae was compromised by his obsession with her. That right now, in a private room at a Korean restaurant in Koreatown, the fractured Baeko leadership was meeting to decide whether Min-jae's American woman was an asset or a liability that needed to be eliminated, and that his sister Soo-jin was in that room, fighting for Tayana's life, while Min-jae raced to get her somewhere he could actually defend her. Time was running out, and neither of them knew it. The car pulled into an underground garage in Tribeca, all concrete and shadows and security cameras every 10 feet. Min-jae helped her out, his hand on her lower back, his body positioned between her and every possible threat. Even his protective stance made her pulse race. This way. The private elevator required a fingerprint, retinal scan, and code. Inside the mirrored elevator, Tayana caught sight of them, her disheveled and terrified, him dark and dangerous, and unable to stop touching her. His hand slid from her back to her hip, pulling her against him. Min-jae, what are you... I need... His voice was rough, desperate. I need to feel you, know you're real, that you're safe. His other hand cupped her face, tilting her head up. I almost lost you tonight. You barely know me, she whispered, but her hands were gripping his shirt, holding on. I know enough. His forehead pressed against hers. I know you're stubborn and scared and trying so hard to hate me. I know you're carrying my baby and it terrifies you. I know, his thumb stroked her bottom lip, that you want me to kiss you right now even though you shouldn't. She did. God help her, she did. The elevator doors opened directly into a penthouse that looked like it belonged in a magazine, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture in blacks and grays, artwork that probably cost more than her student loans. But Tayana barely registered the luxury because Min-jae was already on his phone, speaking rapid Korean to someone who was clearly reporting bad news based on his darkening expression. She walked to the windows, needing distance, needing to think. Her reflection stared back, a woman she barely recognized. When had she become someone who let dangerous men dictate her life, who responded to violence and possession with heat instead of horror? "You're thinking about running." Min-jae's voice came from behind her, and she felt him before she heard him. He moved too quietly for a man his size. "I can see it in the way you're looking at the city, calculating which subway line, which friend's apartment, how long before I find you." "Can you blame me?" "No." He moved closer until his chest pressed against her back, his arms caging her against the window. "But it won't work. I have people at every hospital, every clinic, every place you might run. I'll find you in hours." His lips brushed her neck, and she gasped. "And when I do, I'll remind you why running is pointless, why your body will always bring you back to me." His hand slid around her waist, one moving up to cup her breast through the thin sweatshirt, the other sliding down to press against her lower stomach where their baby grew. "Min-jae." Her protest died as he squeezed gently, his thumb finding her nipple through the fabric. "You're not wearing a bra," he growled against her neck. "Haven't been all night. Do you know what that does to me? Knowing I could touch you like this, whenever I want? You can't just—" She gasped as he rolled her nipple between his fingers. "This isn't what? Fair?" His other hand slid lower, teasing the waistband of her leggings. "Nothing about this is fair, Tayana. Not the way I want you. Not the way you respond to me despite everything. Not the fact that I'm so obsessed with you I killed my own father." The words should horrify her. Instead, they made her throb with need. His phone erupted with calls, multiple numbers, all at once. Min-jae went rigid behind her, his hands stilling. He pulled away with a curse that needed no translation, answering in Korean that sounded like barely contained violence. Tayana turned, watching him transform from the man who'd been touching her to something cold and lethal. He paced like a caged predator, his voice going from commanding to threatening to something that sounded like negotiation. He hung up and immediately made another call, then another. His entire body was coiled tight, ready for war. "What's happening?" Tayana's chest tightened with dread. "My cousin made a move." Min-jae's voice was ice and fury. "Called a meeting with the old guard. They're voting on whether you're worth the instability you're causing." His eyes met hers, and she saw something dark beneath the anger. Whether the American woman pregnant with my heir is an asset or a problem that needs to be eliminated. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "Eliminated? They want me to choose." He crossed to her in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. "The family, or you. Power, or this baby. My legacy, or—" His jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. "They're coming here. Tonight. 3 hours. To see if I'll prove my loyalty." "By killing me?" The words came out barely above a whisper. "By giving you up. Sending you away, terminating the pregnancy." His hands tightened almost painfully. "By choosing the Beko faction over you." "Then do it." She said it even as tears burned her eyes. "Let me go. I'll disappear. No." The word came out guttural, absolute. "You don't understand. I can't." He pulled her against him, his heart hammering against her chest. "I won't give you up. I won't let them touch you. I won't." His hand slid into her locks, tilting her head back. "I'm keeping you, keeping this baby, even if it means war, even if it means losing everything else." "Why?" She needed to understand. "You've known me for 1 day. This is insane. Because you're mine." His mouth crashed onto hers, desperate, possessive, tasting like ownership and obsession. "Because I've never wanted to keep something the way I want to keep you. Because that baby inside you is the only thing I've ever created that isn't stained with blood." He kissed her again, harder. "Because I'm obsessed with you in ways that should terrify us both." It should terrify her. It did terrify her. but it also made her kiss him back, made her body arch against his, made her moan into his mouth when his hands gripped her hips and lifted her against him. His phone rang again, shattering the moment. He answered, listened, and his expression went from dark to deadly. He responded in Korean, short, sharp, commanding, and hung up with barely controlled violence. That was my sister. He looked at Tayana with eyes that held apologies and promises and desperate determination. She bought us time, but Tayana, his hands framed her face. When they get here, when my cousin and the old guards see you, you need to understand something. What? I'm going to have to play a role, say things that will hurt you, touch you in ways that claim you in front of them. His thumb stroked her cheekbone. I need them to see you as mine, as property I won't relinquish, not as someone He stopped himself. Not as someone who has power over me. I don't understand. In 3 hours, powerful men are coming to test me, to see if I'm weak because of you. His voice dropped to something raw and honest. And I need you to trust that every terrible thing I do, every way I claim you, every moment I treat you like you belong to me instead of with me, it's all to keep you alive. Tayana's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. His kiss was gentler this time, almost tender. Can you do that? Can you trust me even when I'm being a monster? She looked into his eyes and saw a man barely holding on to control, saw obsession and desperation and something darker that should send her running. I don't know, she whispered honestly. Then learn quickly. His voice went cold, preparing for war. Because in 3 hours, I'm going to show them exactly what kind of monster I become when someone threatens what's mine. He pulled away, already making calls, issuing orders in Korean that sounded like battle plans. And Tayana stood in the middle of a penthouse that felt more like a cage, her hands protecting her stomach, wondering if she'd just agreed to become a pawn in a game she didn't understand, or worse, if she'd already lost herself to a man who didn't know the difference between love and obsession. Either way, there was no going back now. 3 hours felt like 3 minutes, and 3 years all at once. Tayana stood in Min Jae's bedroom, because of course he'd insisted she rest there while he prepared for war, staring at herself in a full-length mirror. He'd sent someone to retrieve clothes from a boutique she couldn't pronounce. A fitted black dress that hugged every curve, made her brown skin glow against the dark fabric, and probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Heels that made her legs look endless. Hair and makeup done by a silent woman who'd worked with the efficiency of someone used to preparing women for Min Jae's world. She looked expensive, claimed, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with the man who'd dressed her, like this. Her hands trembled as she smoothed the dress over her still flat stomach. In a few hours, powerful men would decide if she and her baby lived or died. The nausea had nothing to do with pregnancy. You're beautiful. Min Jae's voice came from the doorway, and her entire body responded, pulse spiking, skin heating, core clenching, despite everything. He'd changed into a black suit that probably cost more than her car, his hair styled back, his tiger tattoo visible at his collar. He looked like sin and power and danger wrapped in expensive fabric, and God help her, she wanted him even now. He crossed to her with predatory grace, and she saw what he held. A delicate gold chain with a pendant, Korean characters she couldn't read. What does it say? Her voice came out breathier than she intended. Park. His hands were gentle as he fastened it around her neck, but his eyes were dark with possession. His fingers lingered on her nape, stroking the sensitive skin there until she shivered. My family name, so everyone who sees you knows exactly who you belong to. His thumb traced her racing pulse. Is that okay? It should feel like a collar, like ownership. Instead, it felt like the only safe thing in a world spinning out of control. Do I have a choice? No. His honesty was brutal and somehow comforting. But I'm asking anyway because what you think matters to me, even when I can't give you what you want. She met his eyes in the mirror, his hands on her shoulders, his body heat against her back, the pendant resting just above her cleavage. They looked like something out of a dark fairy tale. Beauty and the Beast, except she wasn't sure which one of them was which. Then yes. His exhale was shaky, like he'd been holding his breath. He turned her to face him, and the raw need in his expression made her knees weak. His hands framed her face, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. When they get here, stay close to me. Let me do the talking. His thumb traced her bottom lip, and she nearly whimpered. And Tayana? Whatever I say, whatever I do, however I touch you in front of them, remember it's survival. Remember you're safe with me even when I'm being a monster. Am I? She needed to ask even as her body swayed toward him. Safe with you? From everyone else? Always. His hand slid to her throat, not squeezing but claiming, his thumb pressing against her hammering pulse. From me? I don't know anymore. Because I want to touch you so badly right now, it's taking everything I have not to put you on that bed and make you forget we're about to walk into a war. Heat flooded between her thighs. His words, his touch, the dark promise in his eyes. It was too much and not enough. Min-jae... His phone chimed. His expression went from heated to cold in a heartbeat. They're here. He pulled away, and she felt the loss like a physical ache. Stay behind me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. And remember. His eyes held hers, intense and desperate. You're mine. I will protect what's mine. Her heart hammered as he led her to the living room, his hand possessive on her lower back. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan glittered obliviously while her entire world balanced on a knife's edge. The elevator doors opened, and Tayana's breath caught. 5 men stepped out, expensive suits, cold eyes, the kind of controlled violence that made her survival instincts scream. The first was clearly related to Min-jae. Same sharp features, same predatory grace. But where Min-jae's eyes held intensity and hidden warmth, this man's held only cruelty. His cousin, Ji-hoon, she guessed. Behind him, 4 older men who radiated authority and barely concealed threat. What Tayana couldn't know, what made Min-jae's hand tighten almost painfully on her waist, was that Ji-hoon had already moved against them. That he'd contacted the rival Cheongryong faction, offering them detailed information about Min-jae's weakness in exchange for their support in a coup. That 2 of the 4 older men in this room had already agreed to back Ji-hoon if Min-jae showed any sign of emotional compromise. That Min-jae's sister Soo-jin was currently in a car 3 blocks away with evidence that could save them or damn them, depending on her timing. And that this meeting wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution, waiting to happen. Ji-hoon's eyes raked over Tayana with open disdain, like she was something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. He spoke in Korean, rapid, mocking, and the other men laughed. She didn't need translation to know they were discussing her like property, like a problem to be eliminated. Min-jae's response was ice and steel, his hand sliding from her waist to her hip, pulling her possessively against his side. English, one of the older men said, his accent thick. So your woman understands what we're deciding about her future. The casual cruelty in those words made Tayana's stomach clench. This is Tayana Baptiste. Min-jae's voice carried absolute authority that made her shiver despite the danger. The mother of my child, my future wife, and anyone who disrespects her answers to me personally. Ji-hoon smirked, switching to English. Cousin, we're not here to disrespect your entertainment. His eyes flicked dismissively to Tayana's stomach. We're here because you've created a problem. A very complicated, very dangerous problem. My child isn't a problem. Min-jae's voice dropped to something deadly. Your bastard with an American outsider? Ji-hoon moved closer, circling them like a predator sizing up prey. Tayana's heart hammered so hard she felt dizzy. She's not even Korean, not family, not our people. He stopped directly in front of her, looking her up and down with disgust. She's a liability, Min-jae. The Cheongryong faction already knows about her. They're planning to use her against us. Against you. Tayana's hands instinctively moved to protect her stomach. Ji-hoon's eyes tracked the movement and his smile turned cruel. Ah, maternal instinct. How human. He leaned closer, and Min-jae's entire body went rigid beside her. Tell me, Miss Baptiste, do you have any idea how many people want you dead right now? How many contracts are already out on your life? Her breath caught. Contracts. On her life. This was real. This was... Step back. Min-jae's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried enough threat to make Ji-hoon pause. Now. Or what? Ji-hoon's smile widened. You'll kill me too? Like you killed your father? Prove my point that you're compromised? Emotional? Weak? Try me. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Taeana felt Min-jae's muscles coiled tight against her, ready to strike. She was trembling, fear and adrenaline and the horrible awareness that violence was about to explode around them. Ji-hoon stepped back, but his eyes never left Taeana. Here's the situation. If we allow this, he gestured at her like she was garbage, to continue, we look weak. Our enemies smell blood. Our allies question our judgment. He turned to the older men. So I'm proposing we handle this problem before it becomes a war. Handle? Taeana's voice came out stronger than she felt. You mean kill? I mean eliminate the threat. Ji-hoon's smile was ice. You and the bastard you're carrying, quick, clean, minimal complications. Terror locked her throat. This was really happening. They were casually discussing murdering her and her baby, like it was a business decision. Min-jae moved so fast she barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Ji-hoon by the throat, slammed against the window hard enough to crack the glass. Say it again. Min-jae's voice was barely human. Threaten what's mine one more time and see what happens. The older men moved, reaching for weapons. But Min-jae's security materialized from shadows, 6 men with guns already drawn, creating a barrier around Taeana. You see, Ji-hoon choked out, Min-jae's hand still crushing his windpipe. Emotional, compromised. This is exactly... Min-jae slammed him against the glass again, and Taeana flinched at the violence, at how easily Min-jae could kill, at how much she wanted him to. What was wrong with her? Let him go, Min-jae. One of the older men spoke, his hand on his weapon. We're here to talk, not... Talk? Min-jae's laugh was terrifying. You come into my home, threaten my woman, discuss murdering my child, and call it talk? He released Ji-hoon, who gasped for air, then turned to face the room with Taeana behind him. Here's what's going to happen. Taeana stays with me, marries me, has my child under my protection, and anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me right now. You're willing to start a war over some woman you barely know? One of the older men shook his head. Your father would be... My father threatened to torture her in front of me. Min-jae's voice went flat, emotionless. So I put a bullet in his head. Are you volunteering to give me a reason to repeat that lesson? The room went silent. Taeana's vision blurred at the edges. He'd really done it. Killed his own father, for her. For a woman he'd spent one day with. The obsession in that act should terrify her. Instead, it made her core clench with heat and something darker she didn't want to name. This is insane. Ji-hoon had recovered enough to speak, his voice hoarse. You're going to destroy everything our family built for my family. Min-jae pulled Taeana forward, his hand splaying possessively over her stomach. For my heir, for my future. His other hand slid to her throat again, not threatening, but claiming in front of everyone. She's not separate from my power. She is my power now, my legacy, my Min-jae-ah. A woman's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Taeana turned to see a stunning Korean woman step out of the elevator, late 20s, designer suit, carrying herself with the same dangerous grace as Min-jae, his sister, Soo-jin. She spoke rapidly in Korean, and whatever she said made Ji-hoon's face go pale. English, Min-jae commanded without looking away from his cousin. I said, Soo-jin switched languages smoothly, her eyes cold, that Ji-hoon has been planning this for weeks. He orchestrated the attack on Taeana's apartment to make you look weak, to prove you'd choose her over the family. She pulled out her phone, tapped it, and a recording played. Ji-hoon's voice speaking Korean, then another man responding, then laughter. Even without understanding the words, Taeyana heard the betrayal in it. Soo-jin provided translation. He's negotiating with the Cheongryong faction, promising them territory, information, access, in exchange for their support when he takes over. She looked at her cousin with disgust. He's selling us out to our enemies for power, using Taeyana as an excuse to turn everyone against you. The older men erupted in Korean, shouting, accusations, fury. Ji-hoon's expression went from shocked to trapped to desperate. You edited that. I have 6 more recordings. Soo-jin's voice cut through the chaos, plus financial records, plus witnesses. She looked at the older men. The question isn't whether Min-jae is compromised. It's whether you'll back a leader who's loyal to family, all family, including the one he's creating, or a traitor who'll sell your grandchildren to our enemies. The room descended into chaos. Taeyana pressed back against Min-jae, her heart hammering, her body trembling with fear and adrenaline, and the horrible awareness that her life hung in the balance of this argument. Min-jae's hand found hers, threading their fingers together, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. Enough. His voice cut through the noise like a gunshot. Here's what's happening. Taeyana marries me. Tomorrow. She and our child stay under my protection. He looked at each older man individually. Anyone who supports that, you have my loyalty. Anyone who doesn't, you have 24 hours to leave New York before I consider you an enemy. And if we choose to fight? Ji-hoon's voice was pure venom. Min-jae's smile was terrifying. Then we fight, and cousin, you better kill me, because if you don't, I promise you'll wish you had. The silence stretched like a blade. Then, one by one, 3 of the older men bowed slightly, a gesture of acceptance, however reluctant. Ji-hoon stood alone, fury radiating from every line of his body. This isn't over. You're right. Min-jae's voice was deadly calm. Guards, escort him out, and make sure he understands that if he comes near what's mine again, the next meeting won't end with him breathing. Armed men moved forward. Ji-hoon backed toward the elevator, his eyes promising violence and revenge. The elevator doors closed on his rage-filled face. The remaining men filed out with varying degrees of acceptance and resentment. Soo-jin lingered, her expression unreadable. We need to discuss security, she said quietly. Ji-hoon will retaliate soon. I know. Min-jae's hand tightened on Taeyana's. Thank you, Soo-jina. His sister nodded, then looked at Taeyana. Welcome to the family. Try not to get him killed. Then she was gone, leaving them alone in the penthouse that suddenly felt too quiet. Taeyana's legs gave out. Min-jae caught her before she hit the floor, lifting her like she weighed nothing, carrying her to the couch. His hands shook as he checked her over, her face, her arms, her stomach, looking for damage that wasn't physical. Are you okay? The baby? We're fine. Her voice cracked. Min-jae, they wanted to... Shh. He pulled her onto his lap, wrapping around her like he could shield her from the world with his body alone. You're safe. I've got you. No one's touching you. You started a war. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. For me. For a baby you didn't even plan. You're going to lose everything. I already told you. His hands slid into her locks, tilting her head back so she had to meet his eyes. I lost everything the moment I decided I couldn't let you go. Now I'm just fighting to keep what actually matters. I'm not worth... Don't. His kiss was desperate, consuming, tasting like possession and need and something darker. Don't tell me what you're worth. You're worth everything to me. You and this baby, you're the only good things I've ever had. His hands roamed possessively, her back, her hips, sliding up to cup her face. When he kissed her again, it was slower, deeper, like he was trying to crawl inside her soul. Min-jae, she breathed against his mouth, we almost died tonight. I know. His forehead pressed against hers. That's why I need to feel you, need to know you're real, that we survived. His hand slid to her thighs, pushing up the dress. Tell me to stop and I will. But Tayana, I need you so badly right now I can barely breathe. She should stop him. Should process what just happened. Should think clearly about what she was doing. Instead, she kissed him back like he was oxygen and she'd been drowning. Don't stop, she whispered against his lips. Please don't stop. His groan was pure need as his hands gripped her hips, pulling her closer. And Tayana, melting into a man who'd just started a war for her, realized she was in far deeper than pregnancy or protection. She was falling for the monster who'd chosen her over his empire. And God help her, she didn't want him to be gentle anymore. She wanted everything. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. Tayana woke wrapped in Min Jae's arms, his heartbeat steady against her back, his hand splayed possessively over her stomach, where their baby grew. Last night had been. She didn't have words for what last night had been. Desperate and consuming and everything she'd been craving since Seoul. He'd worshipped her body like a man starved, made her forget about wars and danger and death, made her come apart so many times she'd lost count. Now, in the cold light of morning, reality crashed back. She was marrying a Mafia boss in 6 hours. You're thinking too loud. Min Jae's voice was rough with sleep, his lips finding that sensitive spot on her neck that made her gasp. I can feel your anxiety from here. Can you blame me? She turned to face him, and God, he was devastating in the morning light. Hair disheveled, eyes soft, looking almost human, almost safe. Yesterday people voted on whether to kill me. Today I'm supposed to marry you and pretend this is normal. It's not normal. His hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness that contradicted everything he was. Nothing about us is normal, but it's real. His thumb stroked her bottom lip, and heat pooled low in her belly despite everything. And it's ours? Are you having second thoughts? Yes? No. Maybe. She didn't know anymore. I'm terrified, she admitted, of your world, of what happens next, of... She stopped, but he knew. Of me? His voice went quiet, vulnerable. Of what I am, what I'm capable of. You killed your father. The words hung between them like smoke. You killed 3 men in my apartment without blinking. Last night you threatened your own cousin with murder. Her hand pressed against his chest, feeling his heart hammer beneath her palm. How do I reconcile that with the man who touches me like I'm made of glass, who holds me like I'm the only thing keeping him human? His hand covered hers, holding it against his heart. You don't have to reconcile it. I'm a monster who does terrible things. I always will be. His other hand slid to her stomach, protective and possessive. But Tayana, I'm your monster, and I will never, never turn that darkness on you or our child. You're the only light I've ever had. Before she could respond, his phone erupted with calls. Multiple numbers, all urgent. His expression transformed from soft to lethal in a heartbeat. He answered in Korean, listened, and every muscle in his body went rigid with tension. How long ago? Pause. Where? Another pause. Move her. Now. He was out of bed in seconds, already pulling on clothes, issuing commands in rapid Korean that sounded like battle orders. What's happening? Tayana sat up, clutching the sheet to her naked chest, her heart already racing. Change of plans. His voice was clipped, controlled, terrifying in its calmness. We're getting married now, not tonight, now. What? Why... Because Ji-hoon planted a bomb in the parking garage 3 floors down. He said it like he was discussing the weather, but his hands shook as he pulled out a garment bag from the closet. My people found it 20 minutes ago, dismantled it. But he's also got men watching the building, and according to my sister, the Cheongryong faction is planning to hit the wedding tonight, kidnap you, use you as leverage. He turned to face her, and the fear in his eyes was more terrifying than anything else. We need to move, get you somewhere safer, become my wife legally so you have protection under family law. A bomb. Someone had tried to blow them up, while they slept, while she'd been wrapped in his arms, feeling safe for the first time in days. I can't... Her vision blurred at the edges, panic clawing at her throat. Min-jae, this is insane. Maybe I should just leave. Go somewhere he can't find me. Protect the baby by... No. He crossed to her in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders, his eyes blazing. Running won't save you. It'll just make you an easier target. They have resources everywhere, Tayana. Contacts in every city. The only way through this is together, as my wife, under my full protection. His voice cracked. Trust me, please. I know I'm asking for everything, but... Okay. The word came out steadier than she felt. Okay, let's get married. His exhale was shaky with relief. He kissed her, desperate, grateful, possessive, his hands sliding into her locks to hold her close. 5 minutes, he murmured against her lips. Get dressed. I'll handle everything else. The dress inside the garment bag was white, simple, elegant, with delicate lace at the shoulders and a fit that would hide her barely there bump. More beautiful than anything she'd ever owned. She dressed with trembling hands while Min-jae made call after call, his voice commanding and cold, and nothing like the man who'd held her so gently moments ago. When she emerged from the bathroom, he stopped mid-sentence, his eyes darkening with heat and possession, and something that looked dangerously close to worship. You're beautiful. His voice was rough, raw. My wife. Not yet, but her heart hammered at the word. Wife. Soon. He pulled her close, his hand sliding possessively to her lower back, the other cupping her face. And then no one can touch you without starting a war they can't win. What neither of them knew, what Min-jae's tense shoulders and constant phone checking suggested, was that Ji-hoon wasn't just planning an attack. He was planning an execution, that the bomb in the garage was a diversion to flush them out, that he had snipers positioned on 3 rooftops with orders to take the shot the moment Tayana appeared in the open, that the only reason they'd survive the next hour was because Soo-jin had turned one of Ji-hoon's men, gotten the intel, and was currently repositioning Min-jae's security to counter every threat. They were walking into an ambush, but at least they knew it was coming. The elevator took them to an underground garage where 3 identical black SUVs waited, engines running. Security everywhere, men with guns, scanning rooftops, tense faces that made Tayana's stomach clench with dread. Min-jae tucked her into the middle vehicle, his body shielding hers completely, his hand never leaving her waist. Stay down, he commanded, pushing her head below window level as the convoy pulled out. Don't sit up until I tell you. The vehicles moved through Manhattan with aggressive speed, weaving through traffic, taking random turns. Tayana's heart hammered against her ribs, her hands protectively covering her stomach. Where are we going? She asked, her voice muffled against his chest. Koreatown, private location. Soo-jin's waiting. His thumb stroked circles on her hip, a nervous gesture that made him seem almost human. It'll be small, quick, just us, my sister, witnesses, and an officiant. No one else? Not that she had family here to invite anyway. After, when it's safe. His hand tightened on her protectively. When I can give you the wedding you deserve instead of this rushed... Gunfire erupted. The rear window shattered, safety glass spraying everywhere. Tayana screamed, and Min-jae's body covered hers completely, crushing her into the seat while their driver swerved violently. Stay down! Min-jae's gun was in his hand. When had he drawn it? Returning fire through the broken window with cold precision. More gunfire, shouting in Korean, the squeal of tires. Tayana couldn't see anything, could only hear the chaos, feel Min-jae's heart hammering against her back, smell gunpowder and fear. Then silence, heavy, ringing silence broken only by her ragged breathing. Tayana. Min-jae's hands were on her face, checking for injuries, his eyes wild with fear. Are you hurt? The baby... We're okay. Her voice shook. We're Min-jae, what... Ji-hoon's men, they were waiting. His jaw clenched hard enough she heard his teeth grind. But they're not waiting anymore. She looked through the shattered window and saw bodies on the street. Blood. The other SUVs forming a protective barrier around them. This was her wedding day. This violence, this chaos. This was what she'd signed up for. The convoy continued, faster now, more desperate. They pulled into an underground parking structure beneath a nondescript building in Koreatown. More security, more guns, more tension that made the air feel too thick to breathe. Min-jae helped her out, and she saw Soo-jin waiting, looking elegant and lethal in a deep blue dress, her expression murderous. She spoke rapid Korean to Min-jae, and whatever she said made his expression darken further. "English," he commanded. "Ji-hoon knows you're here. He's mobilizing everything." Soo-jin's eyes flicked to Taeyana with something like respect. "You've got maybe 40 minutes before this location is compromised. Marry her, make it legal. Then we move to the Westchester safe house." They took a service elevator to the 3rd floor, emerging into what looked like a traditional Korean tea house, all dark wood and paper screens, and the smell of jasmine and incense. Beautiful and intimate and completely unexpected. An elderly Korean man in traditional hanbok waited, along with 2 of Min-jae's most trusted guards as witnesses. The officiant looked ancient, wise, and completely unfazed by the guns and violence that had preceded this moment. "We can still run," Min-jae whispered against her ear, his hand trembling on her back. "Say the word. New identities. New continent. I'll walk away from everything." She turned to look at him, and the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear that she'd choose safety over him, made her chest ache. No running. Her hand found his, threading their fingers together. "We finish this. Together." His kiss was desperate, grateful, tasting like promises and hope and barely restrained panic. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke in Korean, deep, sonorous words that resonated in the quiet space. Min-jae responded in his native tongue, his voice steady despite his trembling hands, his eyes never leaving Taeyana's face. Soo-jin translated softly. "He's vowing to protect you with his life, to honor you above all others, to raise your children in both cultures, to be worthy of the gift you're giving him." Tears burned. Taeyana's eyes. This man, this dangerous, broken, beautiful man, was promising her everything with words she couldn't understand but felt in her soul. When the officiant turned to her, Soo-jin translated again. "He's asking if you take Min-jae as your husband, to honor and protect, in darkness and light, through blood and fire, knowing what he is and choosing him anyway." Through blood and fire. The words should terrify her. Instead, they felt like the most honest vows she'd ever heard. "I do." Her voice didn't shake. "I choose him. All of him." Min-jae's eyes closed briefly, a single tear escaping before he caught it, before he pulled her close and kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. More Korean, more vows. Then the officiant smiled, genuine and warm, and nodded his blessing. "You're married," Soo-jin said quietly. "She's family now, protected under our laws." Min-jae pulled Taeyana against him, his hands framing her face, his forehead pressed to hers. "You're mine now, my wife, my family. Nothing can touch you." "We're yours," she corrected, placing his hand on her stomach. "Both of us." His breath caught. "Both of you. My whole world." They signed documents quickly, her hand shaking as she wrote her new name, Taeyana Park. It looked foreign on paper, like someone else's life, except it wasn't someone else anymore. It was hers. "We need to move," one of the guards said urgently. "Multiple vehicles approaching. Cheongryong colors." "How many?" Min-jae's voice went cold. "At least 8. They're not hiding anymore." "They're coming for her." Min-jae pulled Taeyana toward the elevator. "They know if they take her now, I'll give them anything." The ride down was tense, silent except for weapons being checked, final preparations being made. In the garage, the vehicles were already running, more security materializing from shadows. But before they could reach the SUVs, the elevator across the garage opened, and Ji-hoon stepped out with 6 armed men. "Cousin." His smile was poison. "Congratulations on your wedding, though I'm afraid the honeymoon will have to wait." Min-jae pushed Taeyana behind him, his gun already drawn. Around them, security raised their weapons, creating a barrier. "Last chance, Ji-hoon," Min-jae said quietly. "Walk away, live. And let you destroy our family with your American Ji-hoon's eyes flicked to Taeyana with disgust. "I don't think so." Don't call her that. Min-jae's voice dropped to something deadly. Don't even look at her. Or what? You'll kill me like you killed your father? Ji-hoon laughed. You're weak, cousin. Love made you weak, and weakness gets people killed. You're right about one thing. Min-jae's expression went flat, emotionless, the face of a man about to commit violence. Someone is about to die, but it won't be me. The garage erupted into chaos. Gunfire, shouting, bodies moving with lethal efficiency. Min-jae pushed Taeyana to the ground behind, an SUV, his body covering hers, protecting her from the violence exploding around them. She couldn't see what was happening, could only hear the terrifying symphony of death, gunshots, screams, Korean curses, the wet sound of bullets finding flesh. Then silence. Min-jae lifted off her slowly, checking her for injuries with shaking hands. I'm fine. She looked past him and saw Ji-hoon on the ground, blood pooling beneath him, his eyes already empty. Is he dead? Min-jae's voice held no emotion. It's over. But it wasn't over, because as they stood, as Min-jae helped her to her feet, more vehicles screeched into the garage, but these bore different colors. Baeko colors, Min-jae's faction. From the lead vehicle, an elderly Korean man emerged, elegant suit, silver hair, carrying himself with absolute authority. He spoke in Korean, and Min-jae responded with a bow that Taeyana had never seen him give anyone. My uncle, Min-jae murmured to her, the one who helped take down my father, head of the council now. The uncle looked at Taeyana with sharp, assessing eyes. He spoke, rapid Korean that sounded like a question. Min-jae responded firmly, his hand finding hers, presenting her with clear pride. The uncle studied them both for a long moment. Then he smiled, small but genuine, and bowed slightly to Taeyana. He says, welcome to the family, Soo-jin translated, appearing at Taeyana's side. He says any woman brave enough to marry Min-jae and survive the first day deserves respect. Tell him thank you, Taeyana managed. The uncle spoke again, longer this time, his tone softer. He says the war is over, Soo-jin translated. With Ji-hoon dead, the Cheongryong faction will negotiate peace. You're safe now. Both of you. Safe. The word felt foreign after everything. Min-jae pulled her against him, his entire body shaking with relief. He finally allowed himself to feel. It's over. You're safe. His voice broke. We made it. Taeyana wrapped her arms around him and held on while he fell apart. This dangerous man who'd fought a war for her, who'd killed for her, who'd chosen her over his entire empire. Take us home, she whispered. Take us home, Min-jae. 6 months later. The Westchester estate was nothing like Taeyana had imagined. Yes, there was security, subtle but present. But there were also gardens where she grew herbs from her grandmother's recipes, a kitchen where Min-jae's Halmyeoni taught her to make kimchi while chattering in Korean Taeyana was slowly learning, a nursery painted soft yellow where Min-jae spent hours assembling furniture with endearing incompetence. You're doing it wrong, Taeyana laughed from the doorway, 8 months pregnant and glowing, watching her husband curse at crib instructions in 2 languages. I'm doing it perfectly, he argued, but the lopsided results suggested otherwise. It's more complicated than dismantling a smuggling operation. That's because cribs don't respond to threats. He looked up at her, and his expression softened into something that still made her breath catch. Come here. She waddled over. There was no other word for it at this point, and let him pull her between his legs, his hands spanning her enormous belly. Hi, baby girl, he murmured in Korean, then English, pressing kisses to Taeyana's stomach. Your appa is trying very hard not to build you a death trap. Your Iyama thinks it's funny. It is funny. Taeyana's fingers slid into his hair. You've changed, you know. 6 months ago, you would have just ordered someone else to do this. 6 months ago, I was trying to keep us alive. His hands stroked her belly reverently. Now I'm trying to be the father she deserves, even if I'm terrible at instructions. You'll be a wonderful father. She meant it. She'd watched him transform over these months, still dangerous when needed, but gentler, more present, building something legitimate alongside the family business. She's lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you. He stood, pulling her close as her belly allowed, and kissed her with the same intensity he'd had since Seoul. I love you, Tayana Park. Every day.